digga, 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 haha, you're all dead. And what I just did was actually quite offensive. Hello, I'm Electric Richard, and this is about video games and violence. Yeah, the video game violence debate is a long-winded one, and it has come about again in the media and in people's brains, thanks to a number of things. First is, unfortunately, a number of shootings that have happened in the States. That's very, very sad. As a consequence of that, folks like the NRA, that's the National Rifle Association, that's kind of obviously a pro-gun lobbyist group and kind of club in America, who are very pro-guns, as I just said, blame video games for that, for recent tragedies. As a consequence of that and other factors, the US government have commissioned a study into, amongst other things, video games, to see if the violent video games actually do have an effect on young people's brains. Now, to be clear, the US government have actually not just commissioned a study into video games, but all media. So we're looking at film, television, hopefully news media, because there's a lot of scaremongering on the news media in America, particularly on Fox. I mean, they all do it, left wing and right wing, but Fox are very, very good at it. They're very good at it. And pretty much every new major television show to come out of the States has violence in some way, some sort of clever way, whether it's Breaking Bad or Dexter or something like that. It's never about sensuality and beauty. No, it's about gratuitous violence. That's the first thing they'll show before the watershed in America, is someone's head being blown off or blood just everywhere. It's ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous double standard. That guy's old. You probably are pro-games, and you are probably pro-violence as well, in the sense that you don't mind violent video games. Now, you and possibly every gamer you know will easily stand up and say that video games do not cause violent behaviour. That violent behaviour has been around since the dawn of time, and video games, well, they just haven't. I am old enough to remember the Jamie Bulger case. I was quite young at the time when it happened. I won't go into the details. If you want to have a look, Google it, it's quite sad. But at the time, the media blamed a film called Child's Play, which, as you know, stars that little doll, Chucky. The horrific atrocity those two boys did to that other little boy is unspeakable. But I remember very clearly knowing that Child's Play had been removed from the shelves. You couldn't get it anywhere. You couldn't buy it, you couldn't rent it. It was just gone because of the media outcry. As with most major stories in the news, and because I was a little boy, I didn't quite understand why it had disappeared from people's mindsets. But X amount of time later, it could have been a year, it could have been a few months, I remember seeing Child's Play back on the shelf. I remember being in the video shop thinking, what shall I rent this week? What shall I watch? Ghostbusters, Karate Kid. Oh look, Child's Play's back. Turned to my friend and said, hey, Child's Play's back on the shelf. To which my friend said, so? You see, it doesn't matter whether it's a film or a game or something. There's always something to blame with someone's violent behaviour. So really, it's a tough one. It's a very, very tough one. Perhaps universities could study it and give us some answers. Well, they have. A study released only recently from Australia suggests that video games make children smarter and more attentive and give them better hand-eye coordination and all that kind of stuff. Stuff we probably knew about already. But it was nothing about video game violence per se. There are, however, a number of studies which have suggested that video game violence does indeed increase people's aggression. It makes people go out and be a little bit more aggressive. But that's not to say that if they watch a bunch of violent films, they'd also be aggressive. So video games specifically are hard to blame. That's why, again, this government report from the States is looking into all media, not just video games. Now, as a heavy pro gamer as I am, I weigh about 11 stones, I'm not that heavy, but anyway, as a solid pro gamer that I am, I believe that violent video games, yes, they can cause a little bit of aggression, but no more so, like I said, than films and other media, perhaps not books, and shadow puppets. I don't know if they cause a lot of aggression. That's not the point. We must also remember that there are more than just violent video games. There are lots of different types of video games, and good video games, really, really good ones, have violence as a subtle kind of part of the game, and not just the game. So perhaps we can put away our copies of violent death, kill, death, and look at things like Katamari and enjoy the fun that they bring rather than the violence. Although I think Katamari is actually quite a violent game. I mean, what's it like being inside a Katamari? You get absorbed into it and eventually your matter becomes part of the Katamari. You're basically destroyed from the outside in. That's pretty violent. Here in the UK, we had a very famous study, the Byron Report. I suggest you can have a look at that. That was done by a lady called, was it Byron? I think it was Byron. She found that if there was a decent rating system that was backed by one sort of government-ish body, and parents were educated more about what their kids do online and with video games, that this problem would kind of go away, or at least police itself, which is very important. And it seems that while that was suggested and the government backed them, that hasn't really been happening, at least not in the States. And why should it? The Byron report was British, so perhaps this government report commissioned by Obama is what the States really need. A Byron report all of its own, so they can understand, they can realise that gaming is fine. Gaming is absolutely fine, and that there are some kids out there who have just lost it up here and need serious help. And if they do, don't put them in front of video games or films or scary books or horrible campsite stories. It's not going to help them. So if you're a parent, and hi parents, what you should do is pay more attention to what your kids are playing. When they want a video game, find out what the game is, do some research, find out what the rating is, what the content is. There are a lot of violent video games, and they're really only for adults. Again, here in the UK, we have an 18 rating in our games quite happily, no problem at all. And those games are sold in game shops alongside ratings for lower ages. So I guess that's confusing for parents a little bit. You know. But just as you wouldn't give little Timmy being your child, a pornographic film to watch, you would no more give them a very violent video game. So remember, Call of Duty, GTAs, they're not for children. Perhaps your child's old enough to understand what killing is and why they shouldn't do it. In that case, perhaps they should play a bit of Call of Duty. Play it with them. It's multiplayer, for God's sakes. Play it with them. Find out if it really is affecting them. But in the meantime, as a parent, you can also find them some interesting games which aren't violent. Try the new Ron Gilbert game, The Cave. It's available on online on most systems, and it's a fun little game, and it's lots of puzzles and stuff with the guy who made Monkey Island. So, you know, great game, and no violence, well, not much. But as for gun control, well, that's a little different. That's a stickier situation, and let's face it, I'm Electric Richard, not Gunpowder Richard, so we're not going to go into that. No, actually, I'll tell you what, I will say, here's what I think about gun control in America. Alright, I'll shut up, I won't say anything more. I'm Electric Richard, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, please give me a tweet, and leave some comments down there. Let me know what you think about the whole violence and video game thing, and whether it's affecting you, whether it's affecting people you know, or whether you think it's been blown out of proportion. Personally, I think there is a link, but it's a very tenuous one because it goes through all media, not just video games, and that video games are being picked on unfairly. So, stand with me, gaming brothers and sisters. We must defend our favourite pastime. No, the other one, gaming, not the first one. Dirty minds, dirty minds.